spend a lot of my life with a mic on, and suddenly I'm really nervous. That was beautiful. Thank you very much. And as soon as you said I'd like to pray this in Croatian, somehow it felt exactly right. And so thank you. Thank you for listening to that nudge. As many of you know, Mom had a really slow journey to heaven over the past few years. And well, that was definitely not easy on any of us. I think that we were gifted time. Time to process, time to mourn, time to reflect, and to be grateful for her love in her life. When I was little, I was often Mom's plus one, with an older sister and a dad who were comet shooting through the night sky over Big Ben looks like. Because of my mom, I stood among tulip fields at the Arboretum and bluebonnets in the hill country. Because of my mom, I've shopped at Ola Pedrita and Neiman Marcus equally. And if you know both of those places, you are a true DFW native. As I got older, we didn't always see eye to eye, like whether using the radio controls on the steering wheel would somehow break the car, or whether I was old enough to use her favorite plates without breaking them. I never was old enough. But as I've become an adult, I've come to better understand the way that she looked at the world, and her wisdom has become a touchstone in my life. Because of my mom, I understand that you can't fight shadows, that knowing what you're up against may not change the situation, but like turning on a light in a dark room, it helps you find your way through the battle. Because of my mom, I know what a loyal, dedicated, and devoted wife looks like. She loved my dad with all of her heart and trusted him fully, even if she did still turn to Mark for IT advice. Because of my mom, I know that she is now resting at the feet of Jesus, whole, healed, and full of peace. Her worries and physical limitations no longer weigh her down, and I know she is filled with joy to finally be in his presence. Now that I've been a mom for almost 20 years, I can say with certainty that there is no such thing as a perfect parent, much to our chagrin. But the very best parents do two things. They love their children as fully as they can, and they teach them about as much of the world as possible. And those things my mom did in spades. Nothing made Mom happier than having all of her chicks in the nest, resting in the quiet presence of God, and wrapped in the comforting care of the Blessed Mother and the saints. And seeing everyone here tonight, her family and her friends gathered together in faith as she enters into eternity, would bring her immense joy. For your presence, for your prayers, and for the peace she now has, I am deeply thankful.
You know what, y'all? We're good. She said it all. Fine. I got pages. Thank you, Lauren. I love you. For those of you who don't know, who haven't had the opportunity to meet tonight, I am Kim, the eldest daughter. I am so grateful for all of y'all to be here to help us honor and to celebrate my mom. How does one sum up the memories of a lifetime into a brief presentation? It's really not possible. I'll do my level best. I only have 4 pages, size 14 font. As I've been mulling all this over, what keeps bubbling to the surface is what's most important and what we already know, is that my mom is at peace. She is whole, she is healed, and she is alive in God's eternal presence. And there is peace in that. Since Mom passed from this side to the other side of heaven, I've been filled with so many little reminders of her. Just yesterday, I was greeted with the classic, with cheer, with cheer, with cheer, as her favorite cardinal sang his little heart out in my garden. This, of course, makes me think of the chickadees and their happy chickadee-dee-dee that she taught me to listen for. Mom loved birds and knew so many of them. I noted the other day as I was driving and admiring the puffy clouds gently drifting across the sky of all the many times that Mom would refer to them as Georgia O'Keeffe clouds, because they made her think of paintings that looked just like that. While getting ready for dinner, I am constantly hearing her voice to always start with a clean kitchen before preparing any meal. And also, since you're putting the effort into preparing something, always use the very best ingredients that you can. You know, I never thought to ask, though I expect those lessons came from all the years that she so studiously learned to be an outstanding chef by following along Julia Child's famous TV show. She actually watched that in the kitchen while she cooked. It was exactly like the movie and the book. It was very cool. I came across her handwriting the other day going through a few of her things, and was struck again by how absolutely, beautifully, and uniquely perfect it is. To see it is to recall all the many cards she sent over the years, the notes and the messages she left for herself or for anyone in need. And then there are other reminders, admiring the beauty of Japanese maples while recalling the many visits she and I made to the Japanese gardens in Fort Worth. And oh, so many conversations about flowers and growing things over the years. I also went in search of the messages we had ongoing over the span of decades. These now serve as sweet reminders of moments past. As she would come across something of interest or that she thought I might like, she would send me a text or an email or a voicemail. And I the same for her. One of them was a sweet message she left me one day shortly after I moved into her current house. She said, "Honey, I left you a surprise. It's on your porch. It's a mountain laurel, and I think you'll love it." Well, that tiny bush is now a happy mid-sized tree that blooms with glorious purple grapesicle-scented flowers, each spring filling the air with its magic. What a treat and what a beautiful reminder of her. And then there is this, a tender memory that's so appropriate for today. I wrote this to her exactly 15 years ago as part of a gift that I gave her, dated May 18th, 2011. Given the perfection of the dates, I've decided to share it with you in its entirety. This is spoken in present tense because when I wrote it, she was still here. I say it because she's still here. I have these memories of my mom, very often when she was showing me how something worked, sharing the history behind the object or place, or teaching me the science of it. These were good times that stand out. Mostly, I think, because she was so passionate about the subject, knew so much about it, and because she loved me, wanted to share that with me. I learned a lot of really neat stuff in the process, which of course I now share in the same way with my own kids and people that I care about. The knowledge and the legacy live on for sure. My mom is so smart it's scary. She knows pretty much everything about everything. And if she doesn't know the answer, she knows just where to get the information. And then she adds that information to her knowledge bank. It's really cool. My dad's the same way. Listening to them have simple conversations is fascinating. I've always loved it. My mom is also amazing with words. She can create an image like you wouldn't believe. She storytells and writes beautifully, plus has spectacular vocabulary. So when she talks, people listen, because we are all so pulled into the visual that her words create. Some of the earliest memories that I have of all of this are when she worked at a historic house in New Jersey. It was filled with a wonderful little kitchen, household, and farm equipment. It always smelled delicious. And I just have really neat memories of my mom showing me how things worked. Another sweet memory, and don't ask me why this one comes to mind so often, but it does, so I'm going with it, is way back when I was a really little girl in New Jersey. She took me over to the lily of the valley growing in our backyard and gently held a tiny blossom up in her fingers so I could see how perfect and how delicate it is. She said they were her favorites, and I could see why. Over the years I grew up, we moved, all that stuff. But there are still snapshot memories that drift through my mind's eye. Good times where my mom shared the knowledge and teaching the how and the why behind the experience, and also passing on her excitement for the subject at the same time. Fossil hunting in the roadbed of what is now Highway 360. Crystal hunting in the dried up waterways of Lake Louisville. Making drip castles, searching for the perfect bluebonnets and finding them. Going to lunch with her to support some political person or another. Wandering around museums of all kinds, fine art, science and nature, Western, modern. She knew it all. It was amazing. And yeah, enjoying the flowers of the botanical gardens many times. All such good memories. So another one popped into my mind. I was admiring a piece of sculpted wood at an arts festival. The simple, clean lines. Jasmine, in my purse, would you bring me the wooden object there, please? I was admiring a piece of sculpted wood at an arts festival. Thank you, sweetheart. The simple, clean lines, the natural beauty of the color and the grain in the wood. I asked what it was made of, and the artist simply said, Bodark. Well, in a flash, in that instant, I was carried back to when we first moved to Texas. I was 9. And I think almost upon landing in this state, my mom started to regale me, in fact our entire family, about Bodark wood. Bois d'Arc, Osage orange, horse apples, whatever you want to call it. It's an amazing substance. And the history of its use is really cool. My mom, of course, knew every nuance about this tree and shared bits and pieces of it whenever we were out and about and saw one. I have to say that for all of these 32 years, now 47, since my mom started telling me about the Bodark, I've always had a soft spot in my heart for that silly tree. Because whenever I see one, hear about one, or think about one, I think about my mom, and I smile. Because I know that the knowledge about that tree, along with all the other information that is packed in my head and in my heart, is there because my mom loves me. So I bought that piece of art. One for me, and one to give to my mom, so that hopefully whenever she saw it, or used it, she'd think of this and remember those good times. And knows that I love her too. This is my Bodark goblet. An even more poignant reminder of all the love and the knowledge and the memories that my mom gave me. I think you can tell by now I could go on, but in the interest of time I shan't. I'll leave off with this. With all that Mom was passionate about, nothing came close to her depth of faith in God. With God's perfect promise, we know that she is now in glory, singing with her beautiful voice alongside the angels. She is at complete peace. All the suffering of the past few years is over. She is reunited with loved ones gone on ahead. We also know that we will see her again, all of which gives the comfort We need to make it through this time. Rest easy, Mom. We know you live on in God's eternal presence, just as you live on in our hearts. Thank you.
Well, good evening, and thank you for being here. I cannot tell you how surprised I am. I didn't think we knew that many people. Anyway, also I need to thank Elizabeth Victory very much for the rosary that you said, and the section where you did it half in Croatian and half in English was most appropriate because Medjugorje and Croatia were very, very important to my life. I'll talk about that in a little bit. But I thought, yes, I know the obituary had words about how we met, but I thought I'd give you the personal take on how we met and why it took us so long to get married. Because in fact, we were married in 1967, and I had very proud parents with 2 lovely daughters and 3 wonderful grandchildren and a great grandchild. You can't beat that. Not where I come from, being an only child of only children. And so, anyway, yes, we got married in 1967, but we actually met in 1958. It was a blind date, Christmas vacation of 1958. I was plumb out of dates, and a friend of mine said, "Well, I'll find you a nice young lady," and he did. He told me who it was. I thought the name rang a bell. The door opens on the fateful night. The door opens, and there's Suzanne. It was not the girl I thought it was. So anyway, cut a long story short, we did what we all used to do in those days. This is the late 50s, early 60s. When you have a date, you go get a pizza or something to eat, and then you go see a movie. And that's what we did. And we got along very well. It was one of those things where, you know how it is when you meet somebody and you don't really know them, but you start talking with them, and all of a sudden you realize, this is a wonderful person to talk to. So we did. And we decided to date some, and we dated some, and we dated some, but there weren't any sparks. It was one of those things where we gradually sort of stopped dating and became friends, and because of where we lived, we'd end up, it was a rather small town, and so we'd end up running into each other on a regular basis, and we always talked as friends and said, "How are you?" or what have you. And then in mid-1965, I ran into her at a party. It was an afternoon thing, and so what did I do? I don't know, can you hear me? Can you hear me? It's, can we fix? I can shout, but not very long. Let's try. That works a lot better. I guess the little guy inside there got tired of holding the plug down. Anyway, so and to this day, I don't know why, but something, I don't know what caused me to say, "Hey, how about a date? Let's go eat something and go to a movie. Where else?" And I don't know, something happened, and it became ever more serious. And we actually started thinking of marriage. I know I was, and I think Suzanne was also. And then when I was absolutely certain that I was going to get my master's degree, I proposed to her, and believe it or not, she accepted. I mean, good grief, how lucky can a guy get? So anyway, we finally got married in October of '67, and after a wonderful honeymoon in Puerto Rico, we settled in an apartment. This is better. guy inside there doesn't want to hear this.
It happens to the best of us, believe me.
Anyway, we settled into an apartment in Philadelphia because I was working there at the time. So about 2 years later, we were given this most wonderful gift. And I still marvel at the miracle because those were not the days that fathers were allowed into the place where the birth was taking place. But the doctor happened to be an acquaintance of mine from college who had become an MD. And he said, "You want to come in?" And I said, "I saw this miracle of young Kim being born. It's an unbelievable thing." What I didn't know, I mean, Suzanne and I were absolutely delighted. We loved our new little baby, our Kim. What we had not counted on was that our lives were totally turned upside down. And I must admit, and I'm sure many of you will remember that day, the day that our Kim had actually slept through the entire night. We opened a bottle of champagne. Anyway, so in the spring of '67, we ended up moving. Let's see, the spring of '67. Sorry. Right. So here we were in Philadelphia, and prior to the time that we had Kim as our first daughter, I discovered that Suzanne was not one of your stay-at-home types. I remember the first day I came back, and she said, "Hey, come on, let's go meet the neighbors. I've been talking to them." And so we went to talk to them. Some of them are still good acquaintances or friends. She also got involved, and about the second or the third day, we were living in one of the suburbs of Philadelphia. Second or third day, she said, "So how do I get into Philadelphia?" I said, "Well, the best way is by car." She said, "Oh, I know that. Do you have a map?" So I gave her a map and drew her some directions of how to get to there. And when she came back, she said, "Oh, this was wonderful. I found Independence Hall, and I took a tour." And I said, "You did really?" At that point, I had lived in Philadelphia for a number of years, but I'd only been there once. And it wasn't much of a neighborhood in those days, but it was being improved. So anyway, what she did was she ended up resuming her membership in the Junior League, and through that became, believe it or not, a tour guide at Independence Hall, and she gave me personal tours. So, and she also started looking for furniture, because the amount of furniture in our two-bedroom apartment was just enough to sleep and to eat and to watch TV. That was it. For the rest, I didn't know what to do. Suzanne did. She said, "Well, can you..." Anyway, so she started actually looking for furniture and bought a bunch within the budget, most of it antiques of all things, which we both loved. Then, 1970, I changed jobs. We moved back to Montclair, which was the town where we all grew up. And Suzanne was delighted because all of a sudden she was close to her parents, her grandparents, her godparents, her aunt, her uncle, and other such people. And I didn't mind it because I liked the town. Anyway, we bought a house there, and thoroughly enjoyed it. And she really came into her own because her family had lived into this town, and she loved taking you, Kim, around to all the uncles and aunts and parents and grandparents and what have you. In addition to which, as you mentioned, she just got absolutely intrigued by the Crane House, which was a historic house of somewhere that late 1700s or something like that. And she continued working on her cookery. And she, like Kim said, she was an excellent cook. So, I have to be honest, there was only one downside to that first 6 years in New Jersey. And that is that in order to promote my career, I had accepted a position that involved I was selling aircraft, and the territory was everything except the United States. So this was also the days before cell phones and other such things. And literally, I would go on a 2-week trip, leave a message for Suzanne on the kitchen table saying, I'm scheduled to come back on June 17th on flight such and such. It's supposed to land at 4:30 in the afternoon. Give me a couple of hours to get through customs and immigration and get the car, and I should say I should be home somewhere around 2.5 hours later. And if the plan changes, I'll send you a telegram. Can you imagine that? I mean, when you compare it with today and the ready access, years later I started traveling again, but in this country, and every night we talked. So anyway. Right. The next big thing that happened in 1977, when the first young lady that spoke to you this evening was born. Lauren was born in 1977, and it was a wonderful addition to our house. We love them both dearly, and are so grateful that they both live in the same general area as we do, as I do. So, anyway, here comes, I thought something that really struck me the other day, that at the time it also struck me. What I'm talking about is that in the course of my career, there were two events that took place that could have truly upended our marriage. And it's very simple. What happened was that in 1979, my boss called me up and said, I would like to go down to Fort Worth and open up this division down there that we've been talking about the radio contract. And I said, well, yeah, that's good. I have a family here and all that sort of stuff. And he said, well, that's your problem, not mine. Typical boss. So I talked about it with him, with his the number 2 guy. They made me a very good offer, no question about it. So then I sat down with Suzanne and brought and sort of advised her of this. It came as a complete shock to me. I hadn't expected it at all. And so we talked about it, and she asked some questions, and then she said, I'll never forget it. She said, well, it sounds like a good opportunity. You know what? I can make your life miserable, but I absolutely will not do that, and I'm going to do everything to make it work. And she did. It was amazing. We came down here, we fell in love with this place. The job worked out very well. In fact, I got a further promotion a few years later. And we made making a lot of people here friends. I see our very first neighbor sitting there. So anyway, the second time was, and again, the same kind of thing. I was kind of at a crossroads with my boss, the guy that owned the company. I liked what I did, but I just didn't like the direction it was going. It was good, don't get me wrong, it was a good direction, but I wanted to go a different direction. And he counted his shares, I counted my shares, and he said, you may want to look for another position. And so I said to myself, I said to myself, you have wanted to start your own company all these years. You have a friend who's been bugging you to partner with him. This is the time. So I proposed this to Mom out of the clear blue sky. We were all down in South Padre Island on the beach, sunbathing, drinking beer, doing puzzles. And so Mom said, Suzanne said, I don't know. She thought about it for a minute, and then she said, no, I know it's something you've always wanted to do. So my real question is, how much money do we have to live on? Can we live a year or 2 years and, Anyway, so those are the two things that stick in my mind as if she had said no, it would have been, we might very well have been looking at a divorce. Instead, she said yes, and she said it with enthusiasm. And it worked. So, going further, on getting into Texas, we bought a house in Northwest Arlington. We still live there. It's in the hills above the canals. And Suzanne did what she does best. She got involved with the neighbors and started talking to them. And then she knew what she needed. She started broadening her view. And it was forget exactly what it was called then. It ended up being called the Interlochen Women's Club. And she became a member there. Always in trying to find out things that were happening and participating in things that were happening and talking to people. And then we'd have these wonderful talks at night because I'd tell her what I was doing and she would tell me what she was doing. And frankly, what she was doing was often far more interesting than what I was doing. Anyway, so so she got involved again in all her various curricular activities. We'll get into those in just a moment. But when Laura was in grade school, Suzanne finally had the opportunity to get a bachelor's degree. She had an associate's degree, but she wanted a bachelor's degree because she wanted to study geology. She was a geology nut, rocks and fossils and stuff like that. Anyway, so she went to UTA and started taking the courses there. And in the end, she got her degree in geology, major in geology and minor in Spanish. And that was in the year 1988. So in 1989, she started teaching, but actually got to tell you some other things. Kim has already mentioned it. I didn't know that you were on that trip, the Rock Mountain trip, and when they were building Highway 360. Those are now a 8-lane super highway. But at the time it was like a two or 4 lane road, and what they were doing is they were widening it and deepening it, digging down so that the streets could pass overhead. Suzanne found out that there were rocks to be had, and fossils, and Indian artifacts. And she said, wow, this is the opportunity. I have no idea how she talked her way down into that, with all these bulldozers doing their thing, the backhoes doing their thing. And there she is, finding rocks and fossils. We still have them. They're in the house, they're in the garden. And not only that, but the bulldozer drivers helped carry it up. It's amazing. So anyway, also at that same time, she went with, she was a member of the Rock and Mineral Society in Arlington, and they went up to Oklahoma for a rock digging exercise. Didn't strike me as all that exciting, but when she came back, she had, not only was her car, which was brand new, the bumper was dragging just an inch or so above the pavement. Not only that, but it was also covered with red dust. Hello? Anyway, so she came back, and I was sort of curious as to what was causing the car to have its bumper that low to the ground. Well, it turned out that it was an absolutely gorgeous 2.5 to 3 foot wide rock, which was hollowed out. And in that hollow, there was an incredible collection of the most beautiful crystals. It's unbelievable. She gave it the name of the Bell. Hello? Anyway, she gave it the name of the Bell of Broken Bow, because Broken Bow was the little town somewhere outside of Tulsa where she had found this. I built a pedestal for it, and it's still one of the centerpieces of our house. And it is absolutely gorgeous. I've never seen anything like it. Anyway, so Yes, of course. In 89, she was asked by the Texas Boys Choir School, which was at the time, they had their own school, and the Texas Boys Choir had not yet merged with the Girls Choir. But anyway, she was asked to teach 4th and 5th grade science. And I was absolutely, I never thought of Suzanne as a science teacher, but you know, the fascinating thing is, it worked. Because somehow she explained to them what science is, and had made experiment. Never forget the one, she wanted to prove the fact that Newton's law said that no matter what the weight, because of gravity, any two items of different weights will hit the floor at the same time, if they're released from the same spot. And none of the boys believed it. So she said, all right. The next day, whenever it was, the next day, whatever, she had a big red tomato, big fat ripe red tomato, and a little cherry tomato. And she sent the two boys up to the balcony and said, okay, now you stand there and you hold it out over the balustrade, over the railing, and then when I say go, drop it. Well, they thought, I mean, imagine having this ripe red tomato, having a ripe red tomato in your hands. It doesn't get any better than that because it's going to splash. It did. The janitor was not amused, but the boys learned a very important lesson. Yeah, and that's what she did. She focused on things that would bring important information make the boys remember it because it related to their likes and dislikes. It was a rare talent. She finally gave up. She gave up in 99 or 2000 when the state accreditation agency said, I'm sorry, but the lady that is teaching the science, she is going to have to use the standard curriculum. And my mom said, no, I don't need to work. I do this because I enjoy it. So she stopped working and went back to being all over the place. And she did a good job at that. So one of the things that happened was Kim and the twin boys came back to Arlington for a variety of reasons that are of no significance. And so this thing called Adventure Days with Nana started. And they go all over creation. They went to the airport, they went to the Baird's bread factory, whatever they call it. They went to the rail sorting yard north of Fort Worth. She talked her way into it. I have no idea how she did this. I have no idea where she got the guts to do it to begin with. Anyway, so one of the things that she did was one day they were on their way, and all of a sudden they saw what a drill rig, what she thought was, and she thought it was drilling for water. But it's working again. I can be a little softer. Anyway, so she stopped and got to talking to them, asking, what is all this about? And they told her, well, we are drilling for oil. And Mom said, yeah, right. And he said, and the owner of the company was there actually, this was his first rig. And he said, no, you don't understand, there is oil here, but you have to drill for it in a special way. It's called, it's shale oil. So, boys had a wonderful time. Boys had a wonderful time. She had a wonderful time. You know, the fascinating thing is that little company, she remembered the owner's name, she remembered the company's name, and that company became a very big company and a very successful company, and it went public. And so she bought shares, and they did very well for her. Now, you know, as in any marriage, there are smooth times and there are rough times. We had our rough times. We also had a lot of smooth times. The good news was we always were able to talk our way through it and come to some sort of compromise and some sort of apology, etc. But this changed completely in 2001 when she went to Medjugorje, where she met Elizabeth and a number of other people that we know well. And something happened there, because when I picked her up at the airport, I asked her, so how did it go? And and the answer she gave, I don't remember what the exact words were, but she was completely changed. It didn't sound like the same Suzanne. And that night, before we went to sleep, I asked her, so what happened there? And she explained it to me. She had had a vision. And that vision was focused on her and on her relationship with me and my relationship with her. And she basically said, yes, I completely agree. And but I have no idea how or why this happened. We have to thank God, the Virgin Mary. That evening, we came to the same conclusion that marriage is all about us. It is not about me first or you first. It's about us. Based on that, the next 25 years were wonderful. I could not have had the first 30 or so years were good. The last 25 years were wonderful. And so, with that, and so, like I said, we had a wonderful marriage. Then Suzanne got sick. Spent 2 years in the hospital, and at this point, she died in comfort, no pain, no uncertainty, no sedatives or anything. When I came to see her, her face was completely relaxed, and I made the assumption that on her passing, she went straight to where she should be, up there with Mary the Virgin and Jesus. And I look forward to seeing her there. But what really struck me, and this is the last thing I'm going to tell you, what really struck me was, and I see in the back, our great-grandson Luke is being, his mother Rebecca has taken good care of him. Anyway, he was born towards the end of November of last year, and about a month later, sometime around Christmas and New Year's time or something like that, Rebecca and Zach felt the weather was just right, and the time was just right, and they came to the nursing home where Suzanne was. And I was really worried that Suzanne would not really wake up for this because she was already 95% gone, as it were. Instead, we sat outside, and instead, when she saw the baby, I said something like, "Hey, Suze, it's time to wake up. You get to see your little great grandson, Luke." And she said, and all of a sudden, her eyes were open, and she had this huge smile on her face. And that's how I'll remember her. Thank you.
Anyway, Image Gloria 2001 was our first time she came. It was the first time we started taking groups of people there. For all of you, is there anybody here who does not know what Image Gloria is? So you all, okay. This is her first time. This other guy, Bert Sparks. Bert was 6 feet 5 inches, so that's probably 6 feet tall. So the three of us decided to climb the mountain that afternoon by ourselves at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. There was nobody else in the mountain, which is very unusual. So his praying station's going up. Halfway Bert goes on because that's too old lady for taking too long. Suzanne was praying at each station, and she told me that I was supposed to give a meditation for each station after she called up the station. This is kind of coming and going. Okay. And so before we got to the 10th station, we know there was another man on the mountain with us. He wasn't really with us, but he was kind of following us. He was dressed in knee-length shorts and sandals. It's important. I tell you some details that are important. Okay. Can everybody hear me? Can you all? Okay. No, you can't hear me. Anyway. Okay. So we are climbing the mountain, and at the 10th station, this came to me. After Jesus is stripped of his garments, and this is what came to me. Let's pray at this station for those who endured indignities in places like hospitals or nursing homes, are in prison. At that time, the man is now closer to us, and he falls into Suzanne's arms, and he's sobbing. Now, Suzanne's a tall woman. This man was a couple inches shorter than Suzanne. And he said, "You don't understand. I am an Irish priest." And he left his group of 30 people because he just wanted to climb the mountain quietly by himself. And you all are ministering to me. We were ministering to the priests by the meditations we were giving on every station. And so, we got to talking. So anyway, so we included him in the group. And so we finished the stations, we're heading down. So we better hurry because it's overcast, it looks like it's gonna rain, we better hurry on down. It takes like an hour or more to climb to the top of the mountain, and maybe 30, 40 minutes to get down. So we're saying, "Oh, Father, you know, in Medjugorje, Our Lady says that prayer and fasting can stop wars and suspend the laws of nature." And you're like, "Okay, so let's pray that the rain will hold off. Let's pray that the rain will hold off until we get down the mountain. Let's pray the rain will hold off until we get down the mountain." Okay? So we're down the mountain, taxi's coming along, we're saying, "Oh, Father, would you like to ride with us?" And he said, "I'm not supposed to tell anyone, but I've been invited to go to Ivan the Visionary's house for his apparition this evening." So we said, "Oh, Father, we are staying at Ivan's house." Okay. This poor priest looked at his eyes like, "Really?" We just got through telling him, you know, Our Lady said, "Let's let it rain when we get down the mountain." So, okay, we get in the car, and it starts raining after we got in the car. And so we're thinking, this is his first time in Medjugorje, this Irish priest. So we're getting over there. And so we got there, and Gertie Carpenter, who was our group leader, said, "Oh, good, you brought us a priest, then he can bless our religious articles." So the point of this story, Suzanne, his father Ed, somebody from Ireland, they became friends. I know she stayed in contact. We met him on the hill, Medjugorje, and he learned that prayer and fasting can stop wars and suspend the laws of nature. And so that was my little thing with Suzanne the first time we were there. We'll never forget that first time she was there. We went many times together. We prayed lots of rosaries in Croatian. And as I was praying, it came to me that she would want us to pray a day in Croatian. Thank you so much. God bless you. It's been a joy in my life to have Suzanne in our prayer group, and Bill, and all those. We've done a lot of traveling all over the world together. So thank God for all of you. Thank you.
But I want to thank all of you from the bottom of my heart and from my family's heart that you are here. It was a great support and a wonderful thing to see you here. I know many of you are busy. I hope to see some of you at the funeral mass tomorrow at 1:30 at St. Patrick. Anyway, thank you. I think we're done.